Hey, so I want to make a video about marketing, and I think I'm gonna make this one for my About Me playlist. So it's gonna be about my experience as a marketer or marketing guy, right? And where to begin? I did work in software marketing for 5.5 years. I was a content guy. My background is in writing. Before that, I used to blog, which I'll make a separate video about, and uh, I used to play in a band, which I already made a video about, and I found that I liked a lot of the work involved in marketing the band. And when I talk about marketing, I tend to have a more precise definition than kind of what the mainstream conventional assumption about marketing is. I find that when I talk about marketing on Twitter, for example, a lot of people when they think about marketing, they think very much about the very end, the outputs of marketing, right at the end. They think about ads, they think about product placement, they think about slogans, they think about it's all the frilly stuff at the end, right? And when I talk about marketing, that is a part of it, but it's way downstream from the core of marketing. And I think the there are a few quotes and ideas that capture this pretty well. I think Peter Drucker, is that his name? Drucker. He has this quote that goes something like, "The only two functions of business are innovation and marketing, and everything else is just balancing the books. Everything else is just, kind of supporting those functions, right? Innovation is when you make something new, make a product or a service, and marketing is it's intersecting. Okay, so marketing is about you have to think about marketing in relation to the market, right? So the market is made up of customers, and a customer is, and this is something Venkat from Ribbon Farm says, Venkatesh Rao. He says, a customer is a novel and stable pattern of human behavior, which explains the phrase, the customer is always right, right? So it isn't that every single person that comes into your store is literally always right about everything all the time. Rather, there is a pattern of human behavior that you call your customer, right? And like in the abstract. So it isn't any specific individual. It is the abstract pattern of behavior that is the customer. And that pattern of behavior is always right. Meaning, if all of your customers come into your store and they turn right instead of left, there's something there that is right in the sense of the customer. So it's kind of tautological in that, it's like saying the customer is the customer, right? And the purpose of a business, existentially, is to serve customers. So if you're doing something that's not serving customers, then that's a mistake in a sense, or it's something that's outside of that funnel pattern, right? And the reality of it tends to be more complex. So you might have multiple customer behavior patterns, and you get to choose as a business owner or as a business which customer patterns you want to serve, right? I think in Venkat's post, he described it as domestication, which is kind of it's actually a very good metaphor, but it's also kind of dehumanizing. But isn't it true though? Aren't we all, as consumers, in some degree domesticated in terms of our desires, in terms of what we want, what we buy, what we like? Like the movie industry has domesticated us in a way. There's shoes industry, right? Like every industry seeks to, because businesses want predictable and reliable income, as a industry, as a large, and there are exceptions along at the boundary conditions. There are exceptions. A small business owner can choose to not be optimizing for profit, but the frustrating slash, depending on how you look at it, right? But whoever is trying to maximize profit will always kind of race to the top. And if you choose, and with it, and part of how corporations work and part of how capitalism works, right, is, a company will never have to say, like Facebook was indirectly responsible or directly responsible, depending on how you frame it. Let's just say Facebook had some responsibility for violence in Myanmar. Like, people were using Facebook and WhatsApp and whatnot to do those things, and they did not. Well, I don't really want to go into the specifics of it, but my point is, capitalism, like the people don't tell their subordinates, go and start genocides there, go and put poison in the baby milk formula, don't recall the faulty cars with seatbelt problems, right? It doesn't say that. All it says is maximize profits or we'll replace you with someone that does, right? And so there's that plausible deniability into it that's baked into it, which is that you get rewarded for increasing profits and you get rewarded for increasing the share prices and whatnot, earnings, blah, blah, blah. But if you don't do those things, then, while you may have spared the company an embarrassment somewhere, you don't get rewarded for those things, right? And so even if you have good people in a company, very often what happens, and this is not an indictment of any specific company, but it's kind of just the general state of things. Like, people just get passed up for promotion by the more aggressive, more maniacal, right? More like people who get results at almost any cost. And it's very few people are thinking very long term in the scale of decades. It's very often like, you join a company, you do whatever it takes to get promoted in 6 months, and then when you get that job offer, when you get that promotion, you leverage that into getting a job offer somewhere else, and like there's this wreckage in your wake, right? Which I'm not a fan of, and I've kind of gone on a tangent from talking about marketing to talking about corporations and profit and capitalism, but it's all connected, right? And it's all part of this bigger tapestry that I'm weaving. But I want to talk about marketing and my experience, and so even doing marketing for software at a small company of like 10, 20 people, I was hired by my ex-boss, Dinesh, who I respect very much and I think has kind of a good ethics and values and everything. And, we had discussions about what is good for the brand and what is, so like my job was to increase signups, increase revenue, right? Ultimately, like the jungle environment that a company operates in, right? So if revenue increases, right, that means that the next round of fundraising that the company can do will be better, there will be better terms if you have a revenue graph that goes like this instead of like this, right? And so there is, and I do believe that Dinesh, my ex-boss, he wants to build a good company in the long run. And so there's a tension there between doing everything you can to increase revenue as quickly as possible in time for your next fundraising cycle or in time for your next, whatever event it is that you care about. Or where you then make compromises, right? You become more aggressive and pushy with your sales tactics. You make it more difficult for people to cancel their accounts. You charge people semi-erroneously. Like, banks do that all the time, right? Because they're large corporations and they expect lots of people to not notice when they're getting like charged wrongly and stuff like that. And yeah, that's just how the machine works, right? And if you're a small business owner, you can choose to say that the buck stops with me and that I'm going to make sure that every interaction I have with every person that's connected to me is kind of nourishing and wholesome. And I personally believe that in the long run, that's actually, at least at the scale of individuals, right? And I don't know what I don't know, and maybe I'm being naive, but I believe that it's just a better way to live, where you focus on building real relationships with people, real symbiotic, mutually beneficial relationships, mutually beneficial interactions, leave everything better than when you found it, right? Like as a new employee, as a new whatever. Like, be someone that other people love to work with and think of highly. And that's like deathbed optimization, right? It's like wanting people to say good things about you when you're dead or near death, right? At your 80th birthday, people celebrate you. That's beautiful. That's a good life, in my opinion. This is still not about marketing, but yeah, marketing, right? So if you go back to Peter Drucker's quote, and a variation of that is, there are three jobs in a company. You, in a business or as a solo operator, you have to do all the jobs yourself. You make it, you sell it, you manage the money, right? You make it, you sell it, you manage the money. And under manage the money, you have payroll, you have accounting, you have legal, you have HR, you have whatever keeps the lights on, right? Cafe stuff, whatever, however big you get. That's all the stuff that goes into keeping the operation running. But fundamentally, there's you make it, you sell it, right? And even with you make it, you sell it, people, I think, very often have they think that making is like 90% of making, and then like selling is like that final push at the end. Whereas I think it's like a yin yang thing. Like, how do you know what to make, right? You have to understand the market. You have to understand what people want. And when I think Steve Jobs has a quote that's something like, I don't care what people want. Which, again, people misinterpret that, I think, because I do think that Steve Jobs, while he was, people call him an arrogant asshole and whatnot, I do think that while he had a disregard for individual opinion sometimes and individual criticism, I think part of why he was able to succeed, or he was able to lead a team of people to success, was that there was a respect for the user experience, right? And so you have to understand what the user really wants. And again, I'm talking about the customer path thing, which is whatever you're doing, you will always hear somebody saying, why don't you add this feature? Why don't you add that feature? It would be cool if you did this. It would be cool if you did that. But if you try to please each one of those people, you will end up with this chimera product that doesn't make anybody happy. Right, so you have to make difficult decisions, and you can't really make these difficult decisions by committee. You need to do it, but there has to be like a final arbiter who makes these kind of taste-based decisions. And invariably, a person like that is gonna come across as an asshole to some people. I don't know if it's possible to be in that position and also come across as a nice guy. That you won't piss some people off no matter what, just by saying no to their ideas, right? And is there a nice way of saying no? Probably, but again, I'm not running a very big ship, so I haven't had to deal with the kind of pressure that kind of role requires. And so there's probably a personality, character element to it. You make it, you sell it, you manage the money. I hate managing money. I really fucking hate managing money. I hate managing books. I hate doing accounting. I hate paperwork. I hate all of that shit. I fucking hate it. Really, I fucking hate it. I can't express how much I hate that stuff. I hate doing homework. I hate, drudgery, repetition. Some people love it. That's the beautiful thing about humanity. There are people who look at a spreadsheet and they're like, oh, this is like, I can see the matrix in the spreadsheet, right? I can see the I can look at the accounting and I can see the stories. I care about the stories. I do not want to look at the spreadsheets. So I will look at them to the degree that I have to. So as a marketing guy in a software company, I taught myself to care about the analytics, and I did, because it influenced the stories that I was trying to understand and trying to tell, right? And I also cared about the product, So I'm not an engineer. I'm not a software engineer. I can't code per se. Although the people that I spoke to, I did have an interest in understanding their challenges and their, you can be useful to a group of engineers without knowing any engineering at all, because all they're really doing, and I don't mean that in a dismissive way, what they're doing is they are proceduralizing. Having a YouTube channel is a way of seeing what are the words that you know in your head that can't come out of your mouth. Proceduralizing. proceduralizing. They are God. They are making a procedure, right? They're making processes. They are basically, coming up with kind of flowcharts. Like all engineering is a bunch of flowcharts, really, right? Like they have semicolons and fuck shit. It's like databases and flowcharts, right? Like, you have to think about what the database is going to be, of what kind of data in that database, and you got to think about what the flowchart should be. You take data from here, and if this happens, then you do that, and then if this happens, then you do that, and then it just a bunch of more complicated shit about that, right? But then you have a product. You have a system of this and that. Cool. You can talk to these people about what they're trying to do, and you can be useful to them by asking questions and by they'll say that, oh, we can't do those two things at the same time because there's this third variable, whatever. I know people who get very into the weeds on that, and again, I'm not just talking about engineering, software engineering. I'm also talking about, let's say, product engineers who I've met and spoken to. I've met and spoken to people who work in like physical product design. Like I used to interview some people who, there's a guy who made like a very cool phone case that has like this flip out bottle opener, and there's this thing that fixes onto a bike, and there's this amount of precision that goes into the specifics of how every little detail works. You have to get, and to me this is fucking spreadsheets all over again, in a sense, right? It's that same, everything needs to be pixel perfect, every semicolon, and in the engineering every semicolon needs to be perfectly in order, and everything needs to be intricate and right, and I don't have the patience for that. I know that there are other people who like it, and so I would rather just hand that shit off to them, because I can't compete with people who are naturally by personality and character precise. Where I can compete is I can make a fuck ton more videos than anybody else, right? And I'm going to show you how that plays out in the next year or 2 years. I can talk for hours, and I'm good with stories, I'm good with people's points of view, and to me, that, like, when you look at make it, build it, manage the money, build it, sell it, manage the money, I'm clearly in the sell it range. And when I say sell it, again, I'm talking about understanding customers, right? And okay, think about, have you ever had a really good sales experience? Meaning, have you ever had a salesperson approach you and you loved that interaction? Try and remember what it was like if you had one. And typically what it's like is the salesperson is very curious about you. They almost take for granted that their product is worth buying. And they want to know, like they're selling coffee. They're like, hey, how do you have your coffee? What time, how often do you brew it? Do you buy, do you use a machine? Do you blah, blah, blah? Is it convenient? And like very often the case is most people haven't thought very hard about most things. Right? Like you think about your life, you wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you shower, you shampoo, wash your face, whatever. Do you use a face wash? I don't. Like, do I care about what kind of face wash I'm using? No. I mean, I have a face wash in my shower that my wife bought for me, and I do know that, I've been watching more and more of these videos, and I do notice that like my eyes have all these dark circles and whatnot. Do I know how to fix it? No. If a charismatic and curious salesperson wanted to understand my skincare routine or lack thereof, right? And they helped me think about it, and they pointed out my options, and they gave me a solution that made sense within something that seems reasonable to me to buy and try, I'll do it. Like I am susceptible to a good but if I'm walking down the street and some guy comes along and be like, hey, have you checked out this face? I'll be like, no thanks, because again, it's like it's the pushiness and the vibes, right? Like if someone is genuinely curious, I'll hear them out. But if they are clearly trying to meet their, and I know that every salesperson is trying to meet their target, but there's vibes, you can tell, right? And my view of marketing has always been about that. It's about trying to understand the market. That's what marketing is about to me. You want to know what people want better than they do. It can be done because people don't think very hard about everything. People have a bunch of concerns, and then there's a bunch of things they don't really think about. And there are solutions to their problems that are more optimal than what they think, right? I bought my Dyson vacuum. No, I got a Dyson vacuum from a friend who wasn't using it anymore, and they were gonna buy a new one or something. And I walked past the Dyson. I accidentally hit escape on my own keyboard, and that cut the video. I've walked past the Dyson booth at the shopping center near my place, and they weren't. We never had a conversation, right? And I knew it was expensive. I have some brand recognition. I've heard that it's good, but there was nothing more effective than me getting the chance to try it. And again, Dyson is a very big company. They have their own sales targets and their blah blah blah. This is not a product placement production. But there are products that would solve people's problems. Products exist to help people solve their problems. There are a bunch of products that exist just to be bought because they're junk. And even junk products exist to solve some problem, right? I bought this butterfly practice Bali song. It's a butterfly knife. I bought it to fidget, right? And it's my big boy fidget spinner. I'm not very good at it, but it's fun to play with. It cost me, I don't know how much it cost me, like a couple, maybe like $20 or $15 or something like that. But it solved the problem for me. I like having it. It's a shitty product, but hey, I'm happy. This microphone is great. This mic stand is terrible. So I am in the market to buy a better mic stand. But where do I start looking? How much is it going to cost me? I don't know. Maybe someone can suggest to me a good mic stand to buy, and I'll just buy it. That's what I'm thinking about. That's what I care about. You can help people solve problems. Another thing that I care about, which is kind of I care about philosophy, right? And I used to read a lot of Seth Godin, and I've always thought, so Seth Godin, I think he actually studied philosophy in school, and I've always thought of him as a philosopher disguised as a marketer. And I would like to someday I would be happy and proud and honored to be described as that, but I'm not going to claim to be that. But, if you know, right? And where was I going? Philosophy and marketing, right? So I think of philosophy, and maybe I should make a whole separate video about this, but I think of philosophy broadly as just making sense of reality, right? Thinking, asking questions. It's just, people get so hung up on terminology. Oh my god, just fucking ask questions and figure shit out. It's not that difficult, right? I've become a very grounded person. When I was a teenager in my early 20s, maybe, I was very, what is meaning? Are we in a simulation? Are we, I still care about those things to some degree. I've had my hours of conversations about that, and now I care about much more practical things, and I don't agree with the idea that there's this divide between practical questions and abstract questions. I think if you explore any practical question deeply enough, you end up with philosophical concerns, because you just dig deeply enough into anything, right? You dig deeply enough into how you decide what to have for lunch with your spouse, and the next thing you're going into all these, there's probably some name for it in something theory, economic theory, philosophical, what maximizing hedonism, optimizing for pleasure, blah blah blah, right? It's just, and then, but you also have to make decisions. So I would rather make better decisions consistently as I determine it, and I'm happy to revise my idea about what good decisions are, but I would rather be making good decisions than be fucking have elaborate theories that aren't being put to use, because what the fuck's the point of that? I'm getting vulgar. I don't know why. Yeah, marketing, man. So you can reimagine your reality. You can change your quality of life just by thinking about it. It's possible. You can revise your self-esteem or your self-respect by thinking about it and questioning your relationships with the variables that inform your self-worth and your self-respect. What if you're not happy? Why? What is it that's troubling you? I'm not making enough money. Why is it that a lack of, how much money do you need to make to be happy, right? And where did you get that idea? And I was fucking miserable for a couple of years when I first got married, because I bought my house when I got married, and my bank balance in my accounting software dropped to almost a negative 300,000, and I'm like, holy shit, that's gonna take me 30 years to pay off. I'm shackled around. It's Like my debt has got me by the neck, right? And that just made me feel really shitty. But like, why? Like, like it took me a couple of years to come. I think it took me several years. I'm in semi-denial about how long it took me because it's almost embarrassing. But like, it took me several years to come to terms with the fact that I was agonizing over a future that did not exist. And I mean, like if you read like The Power of Now and you listen to Alan Watts, like the present moment is the only moment that actually exists, right? And like what is debt? What is money? Like all of these are concepts, right? I mean, it's, getting into debt is a whole separate video anyway. But like, you can change your feelings about things by thinking about them, and you can ask different questions, and you can reframe. And so again, I'm framing, right? Teaser for future video framing. You can reframe your reality. And so my interest in, and the fact that you can feel better about yourself, like genuinely in your body, right? A better idea in your head manifests in like peace and calm and just coming to terms with that shit. It's fucking mind-blowing. I'm getting very vulgar. And when you realize that, so like, I think I have a tweet that's like, people love software engineering because you can build entire products out of a few lines of code. Amazing. And similarly, you can reimagine your entire reality with your thoughts. It's even cheaper than code. Like, it's even faster than code, right? And another one of my phrases elsewhere is that like, I want to be / I think some people now agree that I am, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I mean, I want to be a word artist magician, right? And when I say magic, it's another video there. When I say magic, I'm talking about being able to do things that most people don't realize is possible. It's not actually supernatural. It's just things that are doable that most people don't do because they don't imagine it's possible or they don't think it's possible. And a good marketer, by my definition, right, which is a much deeper and broader and just comprehensive definition, a good marketer can change reality. Like, you can change the way people make sense of reality, and then the way people make sense of reality, when that changes, they change their behavior, and that changes reality. So, boom, if you really think about it, if you really fucking think about it, you can change, I'm not going to say change the world, but you can change your world. You can change your life by reframing how you think about yourself, right? Like some people say, think about your hourly rate. Like that's, or do a daily to-do list, right? And put only 3 things on it and get it done. Or just whatever it is that's your system, right? Every system that you introduce, a system of thought, right? A way of thinking about meaning, a way of thinking about what's important, a way of thinking about what your priorities are, right? The story you tell yourself about who you are, what you're about, where you're going, what are the conflicts in your life, where does the meaning come from, what brings you happiness and purpose and meaning and joy, right? And who your friends are, why are they your friends, like just all of those things are questions that you can explore, and relationships you can negotiate, right? This was supposed to be a video about marketing. It is though. Like, I don't know if I've connected the dots sufficiently in this video, but to me that's what marketing is, and that's why I am a marketer, and I'm proud to be, part of the reason I got into marketing was also to recognize marketing when it happens, so that I'm less susceptible to it, or I have defenses against shitty marketing. So there's a lot of shitty marketing, and I have a lot of anger and frustration towards shitty marketing. And one of the common examples is, I would say, shitty clickbait spam. And if you go on Quora, there are a bunch of people who basically just answer questions with the intent of like telling you to go to their website. And I was doing some reading and research at some point, and I found that there are a lot of Quora answers with shitty blog spam answers, and when you click on the link, the company's gone. The company is dead. Why? Because, and I tell you, there's a correlation between the kind of person, CEO, team, whatever, that creates the kind of culture, that creates the kind of shitty marketing spam where they just want to get more hits to their website, and the kind of person that just doesn't make a product that matters, that doesn't make a product that solves a problem for somebody, right? even a piece of software can solve problems for people and make their lives better. That's true. You know, Silicon Valley has this reputation for every fucking company is claiming to save the world. Yeah, kind of cringe. But you can make some people's lives a bit better, right? Gumroad has made my life better. Shopify has made my life better. Like, they've saved me time and trouble, right? They've made my life easier, and they've made me wealthier in a sense. Like, even yeah, they literally give me money because, you know, I sell t-shirts and I sell books. But like, you know, I used to run my e-commerce operation manually. I used to have like a Google Docs spreadsheet where I'd fill in everything myself, and that would take a bunch of time. And, you know, I could now, for the price of one t-shirt a month-ish, right, or 2 t-shirts a month, I don't know, whatever, like, get the whole thing done in a shorter period of time. And the additional time, how much is that time worth to me, right? You know, it's like, it's wealth, dude. And yeah, you can make people wealthier with your products. Like, when I say wealth, I'm talking about options. I'm talking about, you know, giving people, you know, this microphone cost me like, I think 200 Sing dollars. But it makes me happy. Every single time I make a video, the audio quality is better. It makes me happy. It has provided me, I would say, more than $200 of happiness. And as I continue to make more videos, I'm gonna get a better video camera, and then that's gonna cost me like $1,000+ bucks, but it's gonna pay off, right? And yeah, just understanding those things well has made me a better consumer. You know, I don't spend a lot of money on a lot of things. All of these rings and bling, they cost very little money. It's like, this was like, I think like, I bought this in India for like less than $1 probably, you know? And yeah, it's when you figure out where you get your meaning from, when you figure out what your priorities are, you don't need to spend a lot of money. And, you know, it's, I think the default script of spending money to solve your problems in the broad sense, like, you know, like whether it's working really hard all week and then getting smashed at a club, which now seems like a distant memory thanks to COVID. But like, you know, some people do that. They work really hard to make a lot of money, and then they spend a lot of money to almost as a palliative for the amount of stress and frustration that they had to live through to make that money. That's, if you enjoy your work, that's fine. I mean, by my worldview standards, you know, you do whatever you want. But I'm just saying, in my worldview, it doesn't make sense to suffer, to make money, to buy stuff, to alleviate the suffering. It's better to go upstream and alleviate the suffering from the start, right? And to me, that's what like marketing is about. You know, it's about framing, it's about positioning. I didn't talk about positioning, right? Anyway, the previous video is 20 minutes, this is 12 minutes. Do we have time to get into positioning? I might do a separate video about that. But positioning is basically understanding where everybody else is in a market, like what all the other products are doing. And my favorite example of what positioning can look like is from this metal band called Party Cannon. And like every other metal band has this black and white logo that's incredibly intricate, right? There's like this practically this heavy metal trope of having these really indecipherably complex band logos in black and white. And Party Cannon has these big bulbous colorful balloon letters. And you know, when you look at the poster from 10 meters away even, right? Like you will see a bunch of black and white blobs, and then you'll see Party Cannon in bright colors. And that's great positioning, right? You're positioning yourself in opposition to everything else that's out there. And, you know, part of what I'm doing with these YouTube videos is a kind of positioning. Like, I don't, like, you know, like, people have been asking me, why are you making such long-ass videos when you're not famous, or, you know, you're not whatever? And I'm like, well, there's a bunch of reasons for it. One of it is that I just feel like doing it. But like, why not make like 10-minute, 5-minute videos? Now, again, I feel like doing it. But I also just know that, you know, people can tell other people there's this guy that fucking sits on YouTube and talks for hours, even though he doesn't have a huge, you know, fan base or whatever. And like, I like that positioning, you know. I will like it when eventually I am #rich and famous, and people can look back and go, holy shit, his early videos he put in so much effort into his early videos, even though there was nobody there, right? That's kind of, it's a proof of work that I like, and that's it's kind of positioning. What else can we talk about positioning? I don't feel like getting into it in this particular video. There's a bunch of advice that I give people when doing marketing consulting. I I'm not really looking for new clients right now, but that is a thing that I do. And I find that very often in with my clients, like the bulk of what we're talking about is I start by telling them, tell me what you want. Tell me what you're hoping to get out of this consulting session. And funnily enough, like that's it's them doing homework, but like that homework is actually some of the most important things they will do for themselves. And if they want to pay me for it, that's fine. But like it is true that it's difficult to do things for yourself when there's no deadline, there's no cost, there's no nothing. It feels like you're kind of fucking around, right? But like when you're paying someone to do it and they say you better get this homework done before we have a session, like that does, I think, introduce a kind of healthy pressure. I've experienced it myself where again, I'm gonna give a talk somewhere, and like the pressure of having to give a talk makes me fill out the presentation. Like 5 minutes before the presentation, I'm still kind of working on it, but I wouldn't get it done without the presentation, right? So there's something about deadlines and dynamics there. I ask them what they want. So I say things like, tell me what you're about, tell me what your story is, tell me what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go, what's your challenge, right? And what is it that you would like to get out of this? And so they give me a list of things, and then I'm basically, the next thing I do is I walk them through their stuff. So usually if they have a blog or they have a website or they have a product, I'm like, okay, let me tell you what I think as a layperson going through this stuff, right? Like let me just articulate my thoughts. And it's always like, your about page has a lot of details, but what's the story? What's important? What do you want me to know, right? There's all these details, but what do you want me to know? And I usually try to help them come up with like a I don't want to say slogan, but it is kind of a slogan. But the point is, it's not just some clever phrase. The phrase has to be evocative, and it has to be representative of what you're doing. So like my personal kind of mission statement on my blog, on my website right now, is that my mission is to grow the world's largest / best social graph of friendly, ambitious nerds. Right? It's a very specific outcome that I'm trying to gun for. Right? I'm trying to build relationships with these kind of people all over the world. And some people will think that's ridiculous. Some people will think that's pointless. Some people will think there's a bunch of people who will respond in a bunch of different ways. But some people, like maybe 3% of people ish, maybe less, they will look at it and go, holy shit, that's cool. I want to be a part of that. And then they will reach out to me. And then my mission gets accomplished by the simple fact that I stated it so clearly, right? And yeah, so that's a big part of what I do as a marketing guy. I help people figure out their voice, and I don't tell them what to say. I don't tell them what to think. I'm like guiding them. Very often people have already said at some point what they're about, but that they say it, it's kind of buried like a few sentences deep, a few paragraphs deep, like what they want. So very often I'm like digging through their stuff and saying, hey, this throwaway line in the third sentence of the fourth paragraph should be your freaking call to arms, right? This is the problem you're trying to solve. This is the pain point you're addressing, right? This is like, why are you doing what you're doing? What brings you here? What is this? And it's like principles of storytelling, right? If you watch any movie, it's like any major movie, there's always there's a hero's journey kind of aspect to it. There's there's an ordinary life, something bad happens, or there's some challenge, some conflict, some difficulty, right? And we all like inhabiting stories because it's a way for us to role play conflict, because we're all conflicted people, right? We're all full of challenges and decisions to make, and it's hard, it's challenging, and so it's nice to see other people being open and vulnerable about the challenges that they're facing and they're dealing with, and where they've come from, where they're going, all of those things. I'm going to end the video here, and I have to try and stitch this video together with the previous video. That's going to be fun. But yeah, done. Feel free to ask me any questions you have about marketing, and maybe I might answer them in a separate video.